morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quinty, Justin, and John. Crows, while we are doing Kickstarter, I am only working on Kickstarter models. I'm not switching off. I'm not doing anything else. So Reaper asked me to paint Kickstarter models while we were in this month of the Kickstarter running. So I'm not doing switching. I'm just doing one model we're going through. The exception will be when I get Stumpy's parts, at which point we will start working on the dragon. Nope, we are not on normal rotation. Not at all. Nope. No, because during the Kickstarter, I was asked to paint only Kickstarter models to promote the Kickstarter. And I didn't want to start a rotation on all of 5 models because I'd never get them done. I'd end up with all these half-done models. But yes, so you know. Yes, Nomad Zeke has it. Bone 6 promo sorta. But yeah, we'll switch to the dragon once I get Stumpy's bits. Ron actually texted me yesterday and said that he confirmed that Stumpy was in the mail. So Stumpy will get to us at some point. It would be even more funny if Stumpy actually was perched on a stump like the last dragon I painted. But no. Right, but you asked a question, so I wanted to answer it. Because other people might also wonder if we do this normally, and actually we do not do this normally. Normally we have a 6 model rotation that we do. Yeah, I know, right, Quinty? But yeah, Stumpy the Dragon is coming. Stumpy is coming. And we're going to try with some interesting colors, accents. This is actually the worst possible color combo to use in the world. A rusty orange, burnt orange with a pink is the worst color combo. But I'm going to make it work by actually using violet, red, purple, and runic glow so that we can make something that does not immediately offend our eyeballs. But yeah, enjoy it while you can, Quinty. Enjoy it while you can. But yeah, I wanted to do something a little bit split here on the weird split complementary. It's an odd color scheme, but my brain told me that it wanted to do this, so I'm going to do something weird and see if it works. So we're going to fill in this accent color today. Narf. I'm not sure what narf means, but narf back. I'm going to drop 1 drop of runic glow into this violet red. Actually, I guess I'll just mix a separate thing so that I still have the violet red if I want to use it for glazes. Probably smarter. Probably smarter. Can't speak for my brain today, though. It's still cold. My brain wants to go back to bed. Snarf. From a Thundercats, yes. Pink is not a happy thing when you're dealing with burnt orange. So we're going to try to... The only reason we can make this work at all is that both are accent colors. So that essentially means that we can try to make them work together. I'm probably going to have to go more purple with the one at his throat. And I'll be able to do more... range that out to a pink more out here, which will be interesting. But normally these colors are the worst colors to try to get to go with each other in the world. Except maybe for a bright blue and a gray green. Like that would look ugly as sin for the same reasons. So essentially, why? Why does this mean, why is burnt orange and pink a terrible combo? And why is bright blue and gray green a terrible combo? It is because, 1, the 2 colors are next to each other on the color wheel. So orange and red. Pink counts as a red. It's just a red with white in it. And then in the case of a bright blue and a gray green, they are also next to each other on the color wheel, and one is bright and the other is muted. So essentially, you're working with that sort of thing. Even though pinks have white in them, they usually are pretty bright still, unless they've got other colors added than white and red. So, right, as a redhead, you could never wear pink, exactly, and that's why. The color is just, like, not going to be good for you. Whereas greens and blues, and even purples, work great, I bet. But yeah, colors close to each other on the color wheel tend to fight, and they tend to fight even more if one is bright and the other is muted. And by muted, I mean non-bright. So in the case of this orange, it has brown in it. In the case of a gray-green, it has gray in it. Yes. So that is why these colors are terrible. But we're going to try to mitigate that by pushing our shadows with these colors into the purple range. By pushing the red toward purple, we're pushing it away from this orange. And I also mixed a little bit of a yellow color into this orange to bring it a little bit more warm. So essentially by highlighting and shading with opposing colors that are farther away on the color wheel, you can make the colors not love each other, but work together better. Though there still is that rule about muted and bright. So if you want to make a muted color and a bright color work well together, it's suggested that you make the bright color a small accent color. That's interesting. So the runic glow didn't impact that violet red very much at all, which should tell you exactly how much pigment is in that violet red. It is a very highly pigmented color. And here I think I'm actually going to drop a drop of my Monarch purple in to the violet red. This will slide it a little more just because there's a large load of blue. So essentially we've mixed two colors off of violet red, a darker shade and a lighter shade that we can then use for these accents. But I'm going to also mix up some of my purple. Monarch is a really intense purple, 9239. It's one of my favorites. I like it better than the shadow. The shadow in this triad has black in it, but Monarch itself does not. So if you don't want to use a clear purple, if you still want to use something that is a little more red and maybe covers a little bit better, you can go for Monarch instead. And I think I'm going to go one more drop here. Boom. That'll lighten that up just a little bit more. Now it's sliding toward a lightish red, i.e. a pink. It's right on the edge, though. It's more like a carmine red. But yeah, Kodiak, welcome to the stream. If you are a newer painter, if you have any questions, like new questions, go ahead and shoot. I like answering newbie questions on this stream because a lot of the time, I mean, I cover a wide range of stuff on this stream. So I do cover some more advanced stuff, but I also cover a lot of new painter stuff. By the way, at this point, I am doing it wrong, quote unquote. If I really wanted, well, actually, no, I guess I did. I did paint the gold around the edge first. So whenever you are going to paint a gemstone in the middle of a jewel setting, always paint the entire thing like gold or silver, at least the base color first, before you put that gemstone in. Because that way it's easier to just leave that gold rim around the outside, or what will be a gold rim, than to try to paint that after you've got the gemstone all blocked in. So I'm going to put some of that lighter color there. So right now that is not clashing. It's darker than the hair, and it's red, and as I add a purple shadow to it, it's going to go further away from that. But if I bring it up to pink, I'll have to bring it up to pink very, very, in a subtle manner, very small. So let's do the same thing to the Easter egg. So the reason I chose violet red is that it does have blue and magenta pigment in it, which automatically pushes it more toward purple and farther away from this hair, which is why it's not clashing as much as it might. It's also why I chose Runic Glow as a potential highlight for it, because Runic Glow is more magenta. It's got blue in it, got magenta in it. It's a cooler color, so again, it's going to be different from the hair. Now for the explosion here, I'm actually going to start with Runic Glow and back it back. Because if this is a spell effect, it's probably glowing, so I'm going to start light. But I am going to shade it with the same colors so that the accents are consistent with each other. I could also throw some more interesting color in here. I've actually got an idea that I might do. So actually, let me, I'm thinking. Hold on. Anne's brain slowly turning over. Meow, meow, meow. Okay, yeah. I think I'll do that. I am going to do a multicolored little hand explosion. And the other color in it is going to be, the other colors in it are going to be the blues we used here. So I can repeat the blue color out at the end of his hand. Which is nice, color-wise, color balance-wise. So I'm going to grab some ultramarine and some surf aqua, and I'm going to just mix little puddles of them on the far side of my palette. Because I just need them for a little bitty thing. And I'll start with the pink and lighten it up with some white, and then I'll go out from there. So let us have some fun. So if we want these colors to be really bright, the best way to do so is to start with a white base coat. I am going to go 4-to-1 with this base coat. Paint to water, pure white. Always pure white if you're trying to paint a bright color over it, by the way. It just makes sense. You don't want any yellow or gray or blue or anything else that might be in your off-white. So, and of course this model was not primed. It was only washed, but this 4-to-1 paint is sticking to it just fine. Right up against the fingers. I am leaving a tiny bit of my lining at this point, just to kind of give a forced shadow there. So undercoating with white when you want a really bright color just helps, because if I try to do a really bright color with this gray that is the base for our bones material, the gray is going to kind of darken anything put over it, especially if it's a bright color. Bright colors tend to be a little more transparent than others, because most of them don't have many high coverage pigments in them. There. So leave, again, just a tiny bit of lining. There. Got kind of a bright star there. Nah. No cadmium. If you want cadmium, go to Vallejo, but I think have they even stopped doing cadmium? Vallejo paint was the only one that did the cadmiums that I knew of that was a hobby paint. There may be others out there. There's not the standard brands that do it, but yeah, Vallejo used to do the cadmiums. And you can totally do it, but let's face it, cadmium red is not actually a bright red. The orange and the yellow are nice, but cadmium red is that awful tomato color, which I actually abhor. So I don't miss it. Give me my alizarin crimson and my naphthol red, please. But yeah, Reaper never did anything with cadmiums because it's just like dumb when you have kids in the hobby, in my opinion. When I was a little kid, we could use all that stuff and nobody ever told us that it was bad for us. So yep, and you could totally do that. For the most part, I don't find it's really necessary. I'm going to put 2 smooth coats on anyway to get my smooth base coat that I want. So at this point, I'm just accustomed to doing that. 1 coat coverage for me, is just like, I only want it every once in a while. Like, most of the time I'm working with translucent paint, so I want something I don't have to fight with. So I don't even bother reaching for a different paint for base coat. I just go with it. Oh, I mean, the colors are out there in artist paint, Shadow Raven. I mean, they're used for the same reason that they always were, in that they have, they're bright, relatively bright pigments with better coverage. But nowadays, more and more paint companies are going away from them, and doing things like more of a cadmium orange hue, using actually the same sort of pigments that Master Series pioneered, the high density. They're using that same kind of thing, so that they can create a paint with decent coverage that is a brighter color and that is non-toxic. Not using... Because, I mean, make no mistake, that crap is also getting more and more expensive. Like, the stuff to make the original pigments, like, everybody's going to just synthetics now. And so, if you can also lower the toxicity, if you can drop the cadmium out of the equation and get decent coverage, and it's cheaper to produce, you bet your butt the paint companies will be all on it. Because if it's cheaper to produce, that gives them a better margin. Pigment is the most expensive thing you're going to put in a paint, usually. This is not the case with some very high quality bases, which are very expensive. So I missed a line here, so I am actually going to put the line back in there. I may end up grabbing, making it disappear if I do a lot of glow. But for now, I'm going to do that. Yeah, they are very, very expensive. Exactly. Rex has it. Rex is in the know on this one, because he uses them. But yeah, it's like... And honestly, the synthetics are getting better and better as far as the coverage goes. So I think the cadmiums have a short, like, get them while you can, because the trend over the last 10 years has been paint companies trying to move away from them. So you may still be able to get them for boutique, as a boutique paint for a while, but I wonder how long that will be. How long those will actually still be available. So what I'm doing here is I'm making more of a bright white. I'm putting an extra coat on down in the insides of these spikes, because that's where the glow is going to be if this is a very brightly glowing spell effect. Yeah, that's $40. It could be used on minis, exactly. Yeah, another color nobody wants to use anymore, lead white. Titanium is where it's at. Hey Cervantes, actually we make a Reaper starter set. It's 11 colors, an MSP starter set. It gives you black and white and some colors that I use all the time. So I would advise you do that one first. And from there on, it's really about what you're painting, what model you're painting. I would base all of your subsequent purchases off of, I'm going to be painting a lot of blue, or I'm going to be painting a lot of humans, so I need more skin tones. These models have a lot of leather, so I need more browns. I don't know if you are on my Patreon, but I'm actually putting together a PDF for the $5 tier right now on a recipe for light leather using a pentat of colors. So it's got a good selection of lighter browns in there. But another way that you could do it, Cervantes, is to pick up fast palettes. Because there's 6 color sets, right? So you could do 2 fast palettes then every time you buy, and you'd get 12 colors. But I would go with the starter set first. I mean, I made it for that reason. The original starter set. Oh, thank you for the Patreon link, Quindy. Yes. So I was going to do brown pentads this month, but then I thought, I'd kind of like to do a thing on light leather colors, because I haven't done that one before. I don't use them very often, but it's definitely like something you want to have in your wheelhouse. So I put together a pentad, an expanded pentad for that. All right, got all my colors. Now I can start blocking in the horrible, terrible pink on the end of here. But what have I done here? So, okay, if you want to make pink and burnt orange or any two colors that really hate each other. Oh, is it 13 colors now? Okay, cool. They added 2, huh? All right, so what I'm doing here is I'm taking a neutral color and 2 neutral colors, actually, if you count the beige, that's the off-white, and then this, the black here. And I'm putting it in between the culprits, right? I'm essentially separating the fighting colors. This works. So essentially, if you can put neutrals in between the fighting colors, then you can usually use them together because there's enough things separating them that they won't immediately clash. Whereas if I put pink right up next to my orange here, it won't be happy. It will not be happy at all. Pentad is 5. So yeah, Kodiak, what I'm talking about is I've always felt that Reaper paint, although it works well in triads, like we sell it, would work even better in pentads. So 5 colors. When you do a pentad, you essentially have 5 paints. So let's pretend, let's grab a pentad. Boop, doot, doot, doot. Let's pretend that purple is shades that, and let's pretend that white is the other one of ours, pentads. So here we go. Quick note on pentads. So yeah, so let's say this is a pentad. So hypothetically, this would be your base coat. And then you've got a highlight and a shadow and a darkest shadow, right? So you've got a highest highlight and a darkest shadow. But the nice thing about pentads is if you just take these three paints out, then you have a set of colors to use for highlight areas, like the areas on top of stuff. And if you just take these paints out, then you have a set of shadow colors to use for underneath things. Because shadows still have highlights in them. They just never go up to the highest highlights. Like they always have some reflected light. So you can kind of break them up that way. And for your midtones, use this. So you get 3 triads out of one pentad. You get a highlight triad, a shadow triad, and a midtone triad. So that's kind of the very quick theory behind it. It's a simplification, just like triads themselves are. There are a lot more natural ways to put together shadows and highlights and colors in general. But when you're just starting out, simplifications are really useful. So that is what a pentad is. So I've been doing a lot of things at my $5 tier, giving people pentads for red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. And then this, I'm pretty much done with that series, but I wanted to do a thing on leather. And I'm probably going to do that. Color rules and how to break them, yes. So I'm probably going to do a lot of pentads in that $5 series from now on. When I cover colors, I used to just give highlights and shadows for it. But I think it might be more useful to break it down into pentads. And when I do that, I also give alternates. So like you could highlight up with X, but you could also use Y, right? Because not everybody has every color, and I want people to get like, you know, have options essentially. Yeah, I did a I think it's a $2 video on painting with pentads, and it uses blues on a wizard, on Darius the Blue. And it kind of demos the whole pentad thing. So I show on the video, I think it's a $2 one on my Patreon. But anyway, yes. And thank you everybody who's already on my Patreon. By the way, I got 3 new patrons in the last few days. Thank you so much if you're watching now. I really appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to keep that. I'm just going to mix up my paint. All right. Let's start pinking out this thing. But yeah, that was the very short abbreviated version. I do a lot of PDFs on this. I think PDFs are a nice format that I like to use that I obviously can't do on my streams or YouTube. So, all right, I'm going to put a very pale pink in here. Pink with, it's the Runic Glow mixed with white. And I will probably come back and reapply my white. You can't even see it. Wow. Boom. So you can kind of see it. Let's see if I can get it to show up. No, white is blocking it out. Let's see if it'll show under black. Nope. Bleach. All right. Well, it's very pale. You'll have to take my word for it. You can barely see it. It's much stronger in person, but sometimes the camera gets a little confused when there's a lot of contrast. All right. And now I'm going to take a darker pink and bring that out more onto the outer areas. I probably will need to go back in and reapply my white down inside here. Then, because I want to have some fun, I'm going to take a blue and try to sneak that in on the outer edges. I'm going to use Surf Aqua. And I'm probably going to do some wet blending and layering to get it to work. Which really makes it look like candy. he's got very angry cotton candy in his hand. Very angry. It's like porcupine cotton candy. So I take my Runic Glow and I'm going to kind of blend that up into that Surf Aqua. Definitely magical, man. Definitely magical. Hey, Babel. Hey, Eric. Yeah, it's spicy cotton candy. It's caltrop candy. You can throw it on the ground behind you if you are running away to spike somebody's tires. Now, the other reason that this pink is going to work with this orange, other than separating it with a couple of neutrals between it, is that this is very light, and this is more in the mid-range, mid to dark. And so, again, when you can't change the colors, you can introduce more contrast by making sure that one of them is light and one of them is dark. So if you took your gray-green and you made it really, really light or really, really dark, you could use it with a brighter blue, and it wouldn't have a problem. But sometimes you have to take it very, very light or dark in order to get it to that point. So we'll see if this ends up looking silly or if I like it. And I'm only going to make that decision after I also finish out these gems. But I want to at least get kind of a semi-finished state on my little spiky cotton candy. All right, Shadow Raven, have fun. This would be very hard to eat. It is very angry. This is like Chaos Space Marine hard candy with spiky bits. Blending in some of my straight up Runic Glow. Now a little bit more blue. Paint the blue over the pink a little bit just to see what I get. And then at the end, I will probably come in and do some line highlights in pure white on this, and also replace my white in the very depths of it. Interesting. All right, that's kind of cool. Kind of like it. Back end. So once again, going to mix that Runic Glow and white to get a much lighter pink. There we are. Ooh, I also wanted to say thank you to a lot of you. I've been, doing new things on my YouTube channel, doing fundamentals of mini painting videos over there. And I just passed 500 subscribers yesterday. So thank you for everybody who's helped out by subscribing to my YouTube. I'm very thrilled. My goal is 1,000. Hold on. Hard water. Honestly, Schmeedy Wonder, if you have really hard water, I would just use like bottled water or something like that, or filtered. Just to get a Brita pitcher and just filter it. If you're not drinking it, you don't even have to put it in the fridge. It can just sit on a shelf and be your paint water. I would. I don't know that it will affect it, but hard water has minerals. It changes the pH, and pH is the big like thing that will impact the paint chemically. So I tend to say if you have really hard water or like metal pipes, that you should use filtered water at the very least. Some people use distilled. Some people just use bottled drinking water that's had that stuff taken out of it. If you experiment and you don't run into any problems, you should be fine. It really depends on how bad the water is. Like I had a friend who lived in Manhattan. They had really old metal pipes in his building, and he always just used bottled water. But honestly, any normal water, MSP is made to use with water, not flow improver. Flow improver is if you need a little bit of that extra oomph, a little bit of extra push. Like if I'm doing really fine, small details, I'll add a little extra flow improver. But it's really not meant to be like a universal thinner for your paint. Water is really what you're supposed to use. What it's meant to use. Because all of our paints, and you may not be aware of this, but all of our paints already have flow improver added to them. So when you thin them with just water, you're essentially still getting the effect of flow improver in the paint. That's part of why they hold together so well when you thin them. And thank you, Quindy, for the link to all of my things. There, all my things are right there. I have things. Oh, and I really have to put up something on my Instagram this week. That just reminds me. Yeah, I mean, pH, honestly, guys, when pH changes, paint will have problems sticking to each other. Like, your paint will separate and it will turn, like, kind of cottage cheesy, for lack of a better term. It almost like it's frozen, almost like it's been frozen. Essentially, what happens is that the surfactants that hold the paint particles together, like, certain surfactants work best at a certain pH and with certain pH particles. And so when you throw a really big difference in pH into that, you have a chance of disrupting everything. So that's why I say, you can do a small test. It should be pretty obvious after a few tries if your water is mucking up things. No, I would not. Non-toxic does not mean food grade, Rex. That's one of the things I used to chant in the Reaper paint department. Because people are like, it's non-toxic, I can eat it. Non-toxic is not the same as food grade. Don't be dumb. We would like you to stay alive and in the hobby. Okay, it won't kill you, but it definitely isn't good for your innards, okay? It's just not meant to be eaten. We make it non-toxic because then if a kid does accidentally eat some paint, it's not like, oh my god, crazy bad. But it's still, like, not awesome. So please don't do it. This is why we avoid cadmiums, among other things, in our paints. We have a lot of kids getting into the hobby, and we need those kids to stay in the hobby and not die. Because otherwise, our hobby turns into what happened, to some other hobbies I can name, and it just keeps getting older and older. I was a little alarmed at Adepticon this year. I didn't see nearly as many kids as I expected. I kind of wonder if that's because it's very expensive. Like mini gaming is getting more expensive, but I don't know. Yeah, I know, Dallas. I am aware. Dallas knows me. I know Dallas. If he wants to put his life in his hands eventually, stuff will build up in you eventually. If you want to turn into somebody who's half latex, then keep going. Honestly, I'm not sure what would happen, but I mean. That's funny you mentioned Dallas, because I was looking at his, when I was painting my entry for Privateer Press Grandmaster this year, I looked at his version of it, because he had the best version of the Borka bust out there. Hands down the best, up until... Now, I feel like mine is a decent contender. It's a very different paint style, though. Yeah, you went there, Grand Oracle. I was being nice. Kuranico, most modern pigments and paints are done in a pH range to be pretty tolerant. Like, they're not nearly as sensitive as they used to be. But I still feel like there's definitely an upper and lower limit to the pH you want to use. And really, there's no reason to experiment because it's not like it's going to make your paint better. It's only eventually going to break the paint. So, as far as like just curiosity, sure, you could do the experiment, but it wouldn't, it's not terribly useful. All right, so we've got some pinky bluey thing. That's true. That's true, Eric. It could have been that. I won't draw any conclusions until I go for another couple years and see what the split's like. Ah, I see, Lorgrim, I see. I used to paint a lot of more historicals than I do now. I still have a few. I used to paint a lot of Vikings. Vikings and Celts. I'm going to put some white down here in the interior spaces. Just little dabs of it. I don't want to wipe out all of my pale pink, but I definitely want it to be lighter at the center. It says not showing up on camera. Great, sadly. But yeah, hopefully we get kids coming back, kids at Adepticon. It is terribly expensive to go unless you're local. So I can totally see why some families were just like, nope. Somebody told me that rooms at the hotel were going for $600 at the Renaissance, which is insane. Like, who can afford to go? Like, for multiple days at that point. There we go. I was never into Napoleonics, though. Like, I got a little bit interested in it because I love the Sharps Rifles books, but I wasn't interested in it enough to paint it. I just like magic. I like wonky, cool magic things. I cannot lie. And I also love sexy women sculpts, and they really don't exist in Napoleonics. It's all guys. It's all guys in uniforms with guns. I get a little sick of it after a while. Yeah, that's true. There are some really cool... What I do like in historicals is busts. I do own a couple of historical busts that I really like. Because I feel like that focuses on more of the character and less of just like... I don't know. It's just a little bit more like... Makes it more of a person, more interesting. I can get it more personality in there. And that makes it more interesting to me. I mean, technically, I could write off a trip to Adepticon. You have to watch travel expenses these days. They are a little bit more... They keep an eye on that stuff a little bit more. But yes, if like I went and taught classes or whatever, and you could call it networking. If you're entering competitions, you could call it, reputation building. You could try to write it off, but that's not the majority of people who go to Adepticon. So I'm going to do a little bit of white underpainting here. My runic glow got very thin. I want to get a lighter color on this heart. Nope, no, it'll take a few days, I imagine, Pendrake. Ron I said this earlier in the stream, but Ron contacted me yesterday to tell me that he had confirmed that pieces of Stumpy were in the mail. Yeah, Young Miniatures. Curel Knave does a lot of their box art. But if you look up Young Miniatures Grand Oracle, they have both, they've got some fantasy ones, but they also have some really, really nice historical ones. All right, I'm going to do some white underpainting on this gem. I kind of want to do Hold on, let me look it up. I kind of want to do a star sapphire. So I just need to double check the placement of the star. So, of course, when you want to do a thing, you should look up the things and see how the things actually look. And note where the star goes in relation to the highlight. I don't want to shop, I want images. It looks like the star is off-center from some of these I'm seeing, because there's multiple light sources, so that makes it hard to see. But they're not really on with the highlight. With artificial, like sometimes you see one like that, where it's just the bright light in the middle and there's the star. So probably I should try that, although in some of these you can see there's multiple light sources, but we're still getting a really strong dot in the center. When you're looking at jewels, it's really difficult because so few have natural lighting. There we go. So here, what we're seeing is the sun here and the star actually flaring here, which is more like what I would have expected. Here we're seeing the star going straight in. Ah, there's a diagram. Interesting. Huh, very interesting. All right, well, I'm just going to go for the glare in the middle, I think, and radiate outward. Much as I feel like that's not like necessarily the way it would go, it'll be close enough. Gotcha, Chibi. Thanks. That's what it was looking like, but it's weird because it's not the way most gems work, but then it is a very unique type of gem, so. Yeah, I mean, you can write off travel. I mean, when you're a creative, if you're an author or a painter or whatever, and you're going to a show or a convention, you absolutely can write it off. You just got to keep really good records. You're still paying for it, though. Like, just because I can write something off of my taxes doesn't mean I can go crazy, because I still only make an X number of dollars a year, right? So it's not like writing things off on your taxes is like the answer to everything. You still have to take it out, pay it out of your own money. So if you don't have a lot of money, so one stripe. You'll end up like having to pay less taxes down the road, but it's not, yeah, you still have to have the money in your account, right? Let's see here. I need to double check something. I need to double check how the lines curve. Okay, so they curve around the face of the gem. So we have to keep that in mind. So if I'm doing this and this, I'm going to just block it in really rough first. And then I can fix it. So never like try to draw perfect lines in your first go, guys. You can always just take your paint and touch it up. The easiest way to draw a thin line, and I'm going to do a video on this soon for my YouTube, is not to draw a thin line at all. It's to draw a thick line and then come back and touch it up. It's actually much easier to touch it up than to draw a super thin line in the beginning. Yeah, we'll just rock that. And that one is off. So I'm going to cover that over entirely and fix it. They're fun to put if you have a round gem on a staff, though. I remember the first time I saw a painter do it, it was Jennifer Haley doing it back in the early 2000s, and it like blew people's minds. Because up to then, we hadn't seen anybody do it. I'm gonna pretty much just go around and adjust some of these lines as I can. Until I get a better star. He is kind of Eastery. He's fine. Especially now that I'm throwing the pastel colors in the Easter egg in. Right? Yes, he's a non-Easter wizard. It's the kind of thing I would do just to have my own little private joke and then hand it in to Ron and he'd never know. No, longer bristles on a brush give less control, War Shadow. Shorter bristles give more control. However, you usually have a harder time getting a very, like if you want to do a long tapering stroke, then longer bristles are a little bit better for that. The problem with shorter bristles is you get more of a wedge-shaped brush. I have one here. I can still do fine detail with it, but the tip is a lot fatter coming right out from there, so I have a harder time. Like you can see that the shape is so different here. And so it depends on what you're trying to do. But in general, I find that if I'm doing like a side stroke or something like that, or pushing the paint more, I like this brush a lot. If I want to do really super fine micro detail, the longer brush can do it. And I have a very hard time doing it with this. So for long, thin lines or micro detail, I very much prefer the long brush. Whereas the thicker brush does give a lot of control. So if you're doing stuff and you're just like, you aren't doing super, super fine stuff, then this is just fine. I can do a lot with this. I probably could do eyeballs with it. The tip is still really good. Yeah, the longer one is a Vinci, although this is a very, very worn down Da Vinci at this point. You can tell I've got paint all over it. The letters are rubbing off and, you know, so it's just thinned down from the way the brush looks new, which is, hold on, I have a comparison. This is how my brushes wear. They just thin down on me slowly as I abuse them. There. Oh no, I've got a little hair. I need to take a hair off this brush. 1 second. There. So this is the more new Da Vinci. So the new Da Vinci on the right and the very abused Da Vinci on the left. It's a Da Vinci Series 10, which is their standard round, size 1. So you can see how it has worn down, yeah, over months of use. And I paint every day, remember, so it's going to wear down for me a lot more than it's going to wear down for a person who only paints a few times a week. But yeah, so starter. Now, at this point, I find that I can do insane details with this this brush. Like, because it's gotten so thin, but it still has enough hairs to carry fluid. So for using really thin paint and doing like micro stuff, the broken down brush actually works really well for me. But, you know, I can do a lot more with the general well-rounded fresh one because I've got more strength. The problem with this one is it's thinned down so much that I'm losing the spring of it. Like, it's still snapping back, but it's not snapping back as well as it would in a fresh brush. So you essentially, when you get thinner and thinner, you start to lose the strength in the brush, and that's when it's time to say goodbye. But it takes me a very long time to wear down a brush to this extent, depending on how much I'm painting. Like, when I wasn't painting every day, it would take years. But if I'm painting every day, like if I'm doing it for my living, if I'm painting for at least a few hours a day, I could probably wear down a brush to this point in 6 to 8 months. Whereas, you know, somebody who doesn't paint as much as I do would have a good brush for much longer. And also remember, I'm not like conditioning or anything. If I actually conditioned my brushes, I might have less hair loss to see, because the hairs wouldn't be so brittle. They wouldn't tend to break away as much. So I haven't tested that. I don't know if that's true, but this is the way that my brushes tend to wear. Alrighty. So all that said, so this little short one is an Escoda Optimo, and I don't know if there's a series other than that. It says S1208-2. So I'm going to say the 1208 is probably the series number, and the 2 is definitely the size. I wasn't a fan of the first Optimo I tried, but this one I'm actually kind of fond of, and it's the only shorter, stumpier brush I own. Because otherwise, my paint strokes, my style tends to be very thin paint, and so a thicker brush doesn't necessarily do very much for me. For a lot of the things I do. Longer, thinner brushes tend to play to my style better because of the techniques I gravitate toward. And that's something you just learn. Like as you paint, you will understand that, hey, this brush works better for me than this other shape. It's a thing where you just build it by experience. You get a definite feel for what you're doing and what brushes suit the way you want to paint. It's a very individual thing. So like you can get brush recommendations from somebody, but you may find that you don't enjoy them as much as that person does. And that's totally valid. It's probably just that you paint slightly differently than that person. So maybe you don't use the brush like they do. Or maybe the techniques that you like aren't as good with that shape of brush. So that's why it pays to try a bunch of things. Obliterating a little bit there. Hey, Max. But yeah, I'm pretty brutal on brushes, like over time. But I have a pretty big stockpile of my favorites, so pretty brave about it as far as not worrying too much. I paint like I paint. At this point, it's unlikely that I will change. All right, so I've got that nice wraparound thin line there. I'm going to carry this one down now. And that one around to the side. And then we're going to widen the highlight at the center. I would be the person that's horrible at covering brush care, Lorgrim, because I'm terrible at it. What I do for brush care, honestly, is I just rinse my brush a lot. Like you will notice, depending on what I'm painting and what colors I'm using, but you will notice that I just rinse my brush a ton during the painting process, and that is part of why my brushes thin down like they do, I think. It's just I rinse a lot. I rinse and reload a lot. Very frequently. I taught myself to do it when I was a younger painter. I just got paranoid about paint drying in the brush, and I just started rinsing a lot and reloading. I also prefer, like, paint freshly off the reload is just easier to control. And the more I use this same brush, like if I were to take this and just redip it in and reload it, I'm slowly building up a load of paint deeper into the brush. And I feel like I don't quite have as much fine control necessarily on a reload as I do on the initial, although it depends on what I'm doing. But yeah, I could talk about brushes for sure on one of my fundamentals videos, and give that a little bit of a highlight here. I'm going to go and create a shadow up there next to that highlight. With most rounded gems, where the highlight enters isn't where you get a lot of kind of diffused light. The star sapphire is unusual that way, according we're trusting Chibi's notes on it. She likes rocks. So around that gem, you want to have a little bit of a shadow. And then if you are going to bring up a highlight on this rounded heart gem, you want to actually do it opposite that. So like down here. So I'm going to block it in with white again. Then I'm going to grab kind of my carmine and my runic glow. Bring it up a little lighter down there. like so. And I could bring in even darker paint around that highlight. But yeah, probably, I mean, I really just, I rinse my brushes frequently, and then I make sure they've got a nice point on them before I set them down, and I always have them sitting just flat on my desk, away from other things so they can't get their tips crushed. When I travel with them, I always put the tubules back on them. I save a bunch of brush tubules. Otherwise, I travel in a little like tackle case. So as long as the tubules stay on, they're good. I don't do anything super fancy, but I do think that rinsing your brush often is good for it. All right, I'm gonna bring in a little bit more light red around here. So this is my violet red mixed with a bit of Runic Glow and white to lighten up the center. Lighten up, Star Sapphire. Still have my lines there as a guide, and I'll bring those in stronger. If you're using brush soap, no, because it's a conditioning soap. If you're using something like dish soap, it can dry out your hairs just like it can dry out our hair. So natural hair is natural hair. So that's why a lot of people will say just use regular hair conditioner in your brushes after you wash them. So as long as you're either using a conditioning soap or you are putting conditioner on the brush afterwards, it should be okay. You shouldn't need to soap all the time. Really just look at your brush. Like I've used this brush many times, but it still like has its regular color and it's obvious there isn't paint caught in the bristles. So I don't need to soap this. Like there's no reason to. It'd strip the oils out of the hairs. It would dry out the hairs and, you know, wouldn't need it. So I'm always kind of looking at my brush. When I start to see like a little bit of discoloration down here, that's when it's time to maybe brush soap. But then I'm more likely to use this Winsor Newton brush cleaner and restorer. I have a huge bottle. It got distended in the heat. It is non-toxic. It will strip the paint right off your brush handle, so don't dip your brush handle in it, but it will work all this dried gunk right out of there. It's not an oops Kodiak, as long as, you know, just if you're using pink brush soap, like if that's the soap you're using, you're fine. But I find that as long as if you look at your brush and the bristles are clean and you can't see any paint in them or are down near the ferrule, you really don't need to wash. Yeah, dish soap. Yeah, dish soap is a degreaser, so it's gonna dry out hairs pretty well. No, but it's not a deal breaker. I mean, it's not. It hasn't destroyed your brushes or anything. Like, I put a little bit when I use a wet palette, I tend to use a drop of dish soap under my sponge, just to keep it from bacteria, like to keep the bacteria at bay a little longer. And it's never really like destroyed brushes or anything. It's just like over time you may notice a difference, right? So part of it is also like how much of your brush you dip in the paint and what your paint consistency is. So as you can see here, let me reload. I am not dipping much of the brush in the paint. Like you can see the line. I'm dipping maybe a quarter of the brush in the paint. Up to about a third. If I'm using thicker paint, I dip half of the brush in the paint because thicker paint doesn't flow as well. And so I can't get away with this tiny little amount on here. But hey, our Star Sapphire's starting to look good here. It's a red sapphire, but that's okay. Or a maroon sapphire. Purple sapphire. Yeah, the Masters brush cleaner. Yeah, that's the pink soap, right? That's what a lot of people use. It's probably not terribly expensive either, so I don't use it just because, like I said, if I'm going to wash my brushes, I'm just likely to use a bit of shampoo and conditioner, but I never do. Like all these years, seriously guys, 30 years of mini painting, I don't wash my brushes. Now that's going to change when I get my oil paint because then... Oh, it's $10 now? Damn inflation. Oh. Yes, Babel has it right. It works because it's a conditioner as well. You can use it to reshape the tip of the brush at the end of painting and just leave it in the brush. That's a nice way to retrain a brush that maybe has been a little bit stubborn about keeping its shape. So it'll last you forever. I mean, it's a $10 expenditure, but it'll last you a very long time. So I'm taking some of my violet red and I'm dimming out the edges of the stars as they move away from the center to make them appear to fade in. That looks actually, that's starting to look pretty cool there. That sapphire. Oh, okay. Pink soap is Mona Lisa brush cleaner is different. If it's a cake, if it's like a cake that you kind of add your wet brush to and roll it around and work some stuff into it, I kind of treat those similarly. They are all kind of tend to be in the cleaner, restorer, conditioner type of bailiwick. Yay, star. Star. Okay, let's make it even lighter toward the center now. Oh, Winsor cleaner is really expensive. Yeah, I have a gigantic bottle of it and it'll take me forever to, even the smaller bottles, it takes me forever to go through. So you don't need the Winsor & Newton unless you regularly like end up with paint near your ferrule. Like this is over a year probably that it's taken. But if I wanted to rescue this brush, if this brush started to split, for example, like if it didn't hold together anymore, it's going to be because of that dark buildup near the ferrule. That means there's paint in here. And it's probably really like layers of thin paint that have built up over time, but that can force bristles out of their shape. It'll cause the fuzz. It can cause the fuzz factor, and so that's like when I whip out the Winsor & Newton. Is if I find an old brush, but that still has value to me, has a lot of discoloration down at the edge. So I don't think the Winsor & Newton stuff is necessary. Unless you find that you have a problem with that, then it's worth every penny. It's also great at getting paint out of your clothes. Pro tip. Be careful if it's on weird fabrics, though, because it can discolor stuff. But it is, and the pink soap will not do that. It will not get paint out of your clothes, but the brush, Winsor & Newton will. So again, that depends on how messy you are. Although Jennifer Haley and I always joked that we have three sets of wardrobe. Stuff that has so much paint on it that it can only be used while painting. Stuff that has only a little bit of paint on it so that we can still like kind of wear it in public if we're not too fussy. And clothes that have absolutely no paint on them where we only wear them for special occasions. It's sad, but it's true. It was much truer when I worked at Reaper in the paint department, because, yeah, you'd get paint on your clothes. You would absolutely get paint on your clothes there. I'm going to brighten the white, headed toward the middle here. Come on, stronger. So it's going to look brighter. And now I'm going to try to actually make that even a little bit brighter. You can see that it looks like the light is gathering there, and that is excellent. And from the front, you can see the star, which is fantastic. So I like that a lot. And all of these colors do have colors in common because I'm using the color that I used here to bring in some highlights on these guys. So they have just a little bit in common. So even though they don't necessarily look like the same color when you look at them, they do harmonize somehow. And the fact that I've added the blue out here is causing it to, to harmonize well with the blue here. So, I mean, you can use brush cleaner and restorer to remove paint from the synthetic brushes, but synthetic brushes are just little strings of plastic. When it comes down to it, that's what they are. And so they don't have any moisture to keep, they don't have the natural flexibility of a natural hair, right? That's not the structure of them. They're just plastic strings. Synthetic brushes are really meant to be used till you break it and then throw it away. You might be able to rescue it slightly with some brush cleaner if the reason that it's poofing is that it's got a bunch of paint stuck down in the ferrule, but it's just not made like a natural hairbrush. So you can rescue it to a point. I would say maybe once, maybe twice, but your tips are going to hook anyway. So yeah, I mean, use it as a mixing brush or as a stippling brush for terrain is what I typically say. But it's just, that's why synthetic brushes are so cheap, guys, is that they don't hold their shape for years like a good sable will. $2. Yes. Oh yeah. No. You get access to everything I've ever done in that tier. So if you sign up for the $2 tier, then you get all of the $2 stuff I have ever done. And the $2 level is usually PDFs and videos, mostly videos. I try to keep it a little bit more basic, but there's some advanced stuff on there as well, in a variety of topics. The $5 PDF is Color Workshop. I'm talking about paint colors and how they go together, or what to use to highlight and shade them, stuff like that. Good uses for some odd colors, things like that. That's what that is. I go into more of the paint chemistry a little bit there, talk about color theory on the $5 tier. That's what that is. So rather than just a whole bunch of, different paint techniques and subject matters, it's all about color and paint and colors that go together and color theory and stuff like that. Yeah, rescue it to a point. Thank you, Madashine. You're right. I didn't even think about it. But yeah, so those are the difference between the $2 and $5 tier on my Patreons. And then the $10 tier is even more and usually a little bit longer, more videos and PDFs. And the $10 tier tends to be a little more advanced. I wanted the $2 tier. I had a lot of people at Paint Club who were college students and they were poor. And so I made the $2 tier. So people who are on a really strict budget would still get a good selection of videos and PDFs on painting. And then some of the more flashy and interesting stuff, probably my favorite thing I've done recently for $10 is Colors of Corrosion, which was how the colors to use for all sorts of different rust and verdigris. So stuff like that, right? And when you are at the $5 tier, you also get access to all of the $2 stuff, all of it, everything I've ever done. There's even 1 year, I just didn't bother to switch it back, but 1 year I did a special offer where everybody who signed up for the $5 tier got access to $10 PDF and videos for that year. So technically, if you sign up for the $5 tier right now, you still get that. You don't get all the new $10 stuff, but for that 1 year that I did it, I think it was for the first year and a bit, you will get access to those $10 videos as well as a $5 backer. There you go. Yeah, I've had a couple of them, Twisted Oma. It's actually really fun because a lot of the guys out here actually paint in oils. They don't paint in acrylics anymore. So it's been very interesting, quizzing them and watching how they do it. I'm going to take some Runic Glow and bring it in real tight around the center point here to lighten this up just a little. I don't think it would. I'm going to put a little bit of a glow under here, a little bit of reflected light, but orange would be the wrong color because this is a very pinky, very blue violet kind of sapphire. So you probably wouldn't get an orange reflect. If I had a more of a middle red, then I feel like you could get some purple shadows and orange back reflections. But with this very violet red that I've gone with, it's a very purpley color, very cold. I feel orange is not the right color. You probably get more of a pink. Yes. There is definitely a higher end synthetic and a lower end synthetic. Another one is the Master's Touch. They do a synthetic Kolinsky. I have one, I think. Is this one of them? So they do a synthetic. This is a synthetic brush. It doesn't have quite the razor tip of the natural hair brush. I'll tell you that. It's close. It's very, very close. So I haven't even touched this one, but every once in a while I'll pick up these just to give them a run because the Master's Touch, they have a synthetic Kolinsky that's one of the better synthetics I've seen. They're about $5 or $6 a brush. They're probably more expensive now with inflation. And then as you say, there's some other companies that are doing good synthetics. Yeah, well, then use the trick that I just did on the new brush. Use your, take your knife and separate out the hair and bring it down gently, pulling it out of the body, and then just snick it off against this ferrule down here with a sharp X-Acto. And you'll be just fine. Snick, and it won't disrupt the rest of the hairs. Yeah, well, that's because you're paying $2 per brush, Turgeon. I hate to say it. If you're painting, like, it really is kind of, you get what you pay for. Like I said, the best synthetics, the one that I just showed you, the Master's Touch one, the best synthetics are going to run you $5 to $7 each. And so if you're paying about $2 per brush, you're paying for the very cheapest. I would honestly, if you want cheap brushes, I would go for a cheap sable over a cheap synthetic. You can sometimes get lucky with cheap red sables. They don't like do it quite as well as the Kalinskis, or obviously they'd cost more, but sometimes you can get lucky and find one with a really good tip. It won't have quite it'll be a little softer. It won't have quite the strength of a Kalinsky. There's brush qualities that... But yeah, if you are like just morally opposed to using animal hair or whatever, you are doing, then I would say look up synthetic Kalinsky. I'm sure that Master's Touch is a Hobby Lobby brand, and a lot of people don't like Hobby Lobby. But there's got to be somebody else doing it. So I would look up synthetic Kalinsky online, and it's going to be created to hold a better point, but it's probably not going to be as cheap. There. So that Sapphire's looking pretty good. Yeah, I mean, there's reasons to keep crappy brushes around if you're going to be abusing them on a really big project, like, or a terrain or a big dragon that you're just trying to paint fast, or just big monsters in general that you're trying to paint fast. Thanks, Twistnome. I think it looks pretty good too. I do use cheapo brushes for canvas painting, but I'm using like bigger ones, so like... like these are synthetic. Oh, this is a Master's Touch too, though, because I like it. So I use this for a lot of, there it is, not softened up. So you can see I probably got a little bit of paint in there. This is one I use for terrain. I really like flats for terrain because they really pick up the detail. But again, this is a Master's Touch. It's a shader. It's a size 8. So it was like not super cheap. It was probably $3 or $4 a brush. I do keep my really, really cheap Reaper size 4. This is my dry brushing terrain brush also. What I also use it for is just doing stipple texture on big like stonework. You can get a good irregular texture. So I mean, and this one has been cleaned. Like I have cleaned it before, and this is what it's going to do. It's going to splay out. The hairs are going to curve, and that's just what plastic does. Yeah, that's about what you should expect too, Polly. Is that a good sable's gonna last a while. Yeah. Although again, if you look up synthetic Kalinsky sable brush or synthetic Kalinsky brush, then maybe you can find something that's similar. Kroniko, I gotta believe that Hobby Lobby is not the only person on the planet doing these, or the only company rather. I'm gonna put a really strong bright white right in the middle. I need a little bit more than that. My paint is thin, so... There we go. That looks good. All right, so let's just put a under reflection on the backside here. Gonna fade this out up here. Gonna use some white and some runic glow, because light should probably gather down here on the other side. Opposite where the light's coming in. So if the light's coming in over here, it's going to go down. It's going to light up down here. And I've been doing this for a lot of years between college, going and doing art in college, and then, you know, also doing a lot of miniature painting after college and during college. And my experience has always been that with brushes, you very much get what you pay for. Same with paints. Now, nowadays, I can't trust that in the hobby sector because obviously Games Workshop is super expensive, but not necessarily the best paint. But in general, with traditional art supplies, if you're not looking at companies inflating prices, GW, if that brush is expensive, it's probably a better brush, just in general. So just a little bit of light down here, gathering down here toward the bottom. There we go. Woohoo! 6. Wow. Good job. Oh, did we just pass we just got the werebear? Did we just get the werebear, Quindy? That was at 9:45, right? Not werebear? Aww. Oh, was that the vampires? Ah, okay. Werebear is like next. Now I have to go look. Bone 6 Kickstarter. We have to go look. We have to go look. We have to go look. What's the reveal? Sullen Hall is there. You haven't updated it yet. Curses. So we need another 38,000 to get the werebear, and they haven't done the next unlock yet. They haven't revealed the next unlock. Oh, okay. Ron changed it. Yeah, good. Good idea. Alrighty. So that's looking pretty good, actually, all things considered. Oh, I think we'll hit Shimmer Scale, Chibi. And we've got, what, 21 days left, right? 18 days to go. We've got 18 days to go, and you know we'll get a bump at the end. And Shimmer Scale, the expansion for Shimmer Scale is already revealed. So I feel like we have a pretty good chance for Shimmer Scale. Here, I'm just looking down to see what we got. So next are the bee peeps, huh? Yeah, I feel like we've got a decent chance. Decent chance to hit 1.5. And I feel like if we don't, that Reaper might give it to us. Oh, did they? 4 and 5 unlocked together? Well, that's nice. Nice. Thanks, Grey Wolf. Thanks for the update. Wow, Valandar. Yeah. Pretty crazy. People. Yeah, it's the Fey Dragon, Twisted Oma. Correct, it's the Fairy Dragon. I'm going to use some white and pick out, just like I said, I'm going to pick out the ridges on my star spell effect now. People are weird. Like, it's very odd. And you wonder why people are so reluctant to speak their minds, right? Like, so many people just kind of sit on what they think. And, well, when you have an encounter like that, it kind of encourages you to sit on what you think. Although that does prove you just never know who's standing behind you at the store. But yeah, I'm glad you're okay. I'm glad you missed, Valendar. What happened after that? Yeah, interesting. All right, so I am essentially putting white lines up the ridges of my star effect here. Oh, security got him. Well, good. Well done. So one way to do this is to use the side of your brush. If you don't have a lot of paint on your brush, you can very precisely hit the edges of things by just using the side. If you don't have the brush control to quite hit everything yet. Yeah, it's like getting physical. Ugh. Like, never mind if he actually would have landed the punch. That's assault, dude. Like, jail term. Potential jail term, anyway. And I assume it was also on security cameras, so there really wouldn't be questions. Yeah, that's just kind of crazy. Please, everybody, before you take a swing at somebody, please think. Please stop and take a deep breath. Uh-huh. I see. Assault for swinging. If it landed, it would have been battery. Yeah, it's a shame. It's like, just because somebody makes a joke about something doesn't mean they're like directly insulting you. If you disagree, then like speak up and say, hey dude, I like cars like that. It's kind of neat. Takes me back to the 80s, you know. Don't speak with your fists. Kids, if you're watching this right now, make a note. Don't be that guy. Oh man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that that sort of thing happened. Oh well. Hopefully as he grows up, he will, or as he gets older, he will learn to work with his temper better. And you don't know what else is going on in his life either. So I've gotten reinforced. Because I had thinned my white, I didn't get as bright of a white when I first did the lines. So I just brought in a little bit extra to, you can kind of see them there. Oh yeah, I love though when they do the color shift paint on the cars, which is where it came from, by the way. How do you like it? Which one, the Star Sapphire, Bryce? I decided I wanted to do, it was the closest I can make myself get to Easter egg. But yeah, I love the color shift cars too, Karniko. I always take pictures of them. There was one I saw, I think it was a rainbow, it had a rainbow shift. I have pictures of it on my phone still. Just in case I ever decide. to go a little bit too crazy on a dragon or something. Or an Eldar jet bike. There we go, just a little bit of a highlight on those edges to bring them up. And we're almost, hey, we're about done with stream. Hey, this was perfect. Like, my timing was perfect today, guys. We got the crystal and the crystal in the staff and the little gemstone on his throat all like figured out and finished in exactly an hour and a half. I was taking my time, and we did split off from that to talk about brushes a lot. So red sequins, wow. Yeah, I think Tyranids are the best ones for, the one in the hand. Oh, you like it? Oh, cool. Yeah, I decided to do like 2 colors. I decided to do a pink based on this red, and then I decided to bring the blue in from over here toward the edges. So yeah, it's working. I'm glad it's working. I feel like it's a little choppy in person. I need to clean it up a little bit, but it's fun. So I'm going to put a little extra white in here in the very interior of the crystal star thing. Spell effect, whatever it is. Having the dual colors does make it look more like a crystal than a spell effect, but I'm okay with that. Maybe it's a magical porcupine that he's about to hurl at somebody. I actually like that. Let's make a spell. Let's make it a cantrip, and let's call it Magic Porcupine. And this is what it looks like, and then you throw it at somebody, and it proceeds to roll into them and bite their ankles. For 1 point of damage per round. I think this needs to be a thing. No. Reaper MSP is not getting color shift. Well, at least I don't know, Schmeedy. But I advised against it. There are plenty of color shift paints on the market right now that are pretty decent. And I looked into it when I was still head of the paint department at Reaper. And I ordered some samples of flake. But I couldn't really find anything US based and within the price range that would function any better than anything that was already out there. And I've always had, it deals sonic damage. Yeah, right? It's a hedgehog. But I've always had this philosophy with Reaper, and now that I'm not there, again, it's probably, who knows if the philosophy will live, but my philosophy was always like, if you can't do it better than the competition, or you can't beat them to it, or you can't do it less expensive, or you can't do it with better distribution, then that's all you're doing if you try to get into that market then is just help oversaturate it. Like, you're not going to really benefit from it. So I always tried to look for stuff that other people weren't doing, or stuff that we could do less expensive or better than the competition. So if the competition tried something, but it wasn't really great, but I thought I could do it better, then I would do it, right? It's that kind of thing. Charmander the Cruel. Now, are we going to call Stumpy Charmander now? I can't paint him that way. I've already decided I want to paint him green and blue. I don't want to paint him orange and red. Yeah, slap them with cools for 1 point piercing damage per round. For one, yeah, that. Karandar, yeah. You'll take that auto corrupt. I'm up with it. We'll call it Charmander. Well, I don't know. What will annoy Ron the most? Oh, Lord. All right, it's one of those days, folks. I think it's time. I think my work is done here. I think we have a dude. He's coming along well. And hey, if I get Stumpy, aka Charmander's parts in the mail today, then we can start a dragon tomorrow. But otherwise, we're going to have to wait until the mail gets me the dragon bits. Yes, thank you all. I call it the wrong name to annoy Ron. Great. That's just what we want. Thanks, everybody. Yeah, so the Bone 6 show at 4 p.m. Come back and hang out with people. or at least Reaper employees. I don't know, my brain. Somewhere in the ether today. I hope you all have a lovely remainder of your day. Tomorrow we will either be working on the NMM on this guy, or we'll be working on a dragon, and you're just going to have to roll your D10 and figure out which one it is. All right? Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye.